Hello, everyone. This is Paul Rodden, and I want to welcome you back to the Hydrogen Podcast.
So the big questions in the energy industry today are, how is hydrogen the primary driving force behind the evolution of energy? Where is capital being deployed for hydrogen projects globally? And where are the best investment opportunities for early adopters who recognize the importance of hydrogen? I will address the critical issues and give you the information you need to deploy capital. Those are the questions that will unlock the potential of hydrogen, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Paul Rodden, and welcome to the Hydrogen Podcast.
Today, I have a very special guest on the show, and I'm excited to do a deep dive on his company and where they're headed. My guest today is Ravi Prasher, the Chief Technology Officer for Bloom Energy, and also serves as an adjunct professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering at UC Berkeley, where he advises PhD candidates. Now, prior to joining Bloom Energy, Ravi was the Associate Lab Director of Energy Technology Area, Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. His responsibilities included managing research and development in a wide variety of areas, including fuel cells, hydrogen production, storage and transport, electrochemical and thermal storage, carbon capture, microgrids, and renewable energy, among others. He was also a senior scientist at LBNL, where he conducted research in thermal science and engineering. Ravi's experience includes being one of the first program directors at U.S. Department of Energy's High Risk, High Reward Funding Agency, or ARPA-E, and serving as the Technology Development Manager of Intel's Thermal Management Group. Ravi has published more than 125 archival papers in top science and engineering journals and holds more than 35 patents. Welcome, Ravi. Thank you for joining us here on the podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Paul. Delighted to be here.
So I've got a bunch of questions for you, but before we go into a deep dive into Bloom Energy, I was wondering if I could get your thoughts on the overall state of the hydrogen industry, and would you mind talking about what you think is driving this resurgence in the industry and how it will play a role in shaping the energy transition?
Yeah, I think this is a great time to be in the hydrogen field. And why it's a resurgence? Because there are certain sectors which are very hard to decarbonize, particularly the industrial sector like chemical, steel, or long haul transport like shipping or trucking. These are the sectors which are very hard to decarbonize, and hydrogen provides you the pathway to decarbonize those sectors. In fact, if you look at today in a lot of these sectors, natural gas, for example, is not only the fuel in the industry, it's also the feedstock. So hydrogen, in a way, you can look at hydrogen as a replacement for natural gas sometime in the future, where hydrogen becomes the fuel as well as the feedstock. And that is one of the biggest reasons you see so much of innovation and excitement about hydrogen.
Now, Bloom Energy empowers businesses and communities to take responsibility and to take charge of their energy. The company's leading solid oxide platform for distributed generation of electricity and hydrogen is changing the future of energy. Fortune 100 companies around the world are turning to Bloom Energy as a trusted partner to deliver lower carbon energy today for a net zero future. Can you give our audience a detailed overview of what makes Bloom Energy so special and really what sets your technology apart from your competitors?
Yeah, so I would say, let's start with this. First of all, as you mentioned, the Bloom's technology, whether it is electrolysis for hydrogen, which we will talk about further in this podcast, as well as the fuel cell, both of them are based on the solid oxide platform. Okay, so that platform is basically as a high temperature platform, which converts, in the case of fuel cell, it very efficiently converts any kind of fuel. It's more fuel independent. So today it's a natural gas. It can be hydrogen, or it could be methanol, or it could be ammonia, right? That can be fed into the fuel cell, and it will give you electricity. And on the other way around, when you reverse it, you put steam, and then we get hydrogen out. Okay, so the solid oxide fuel cell, which is the Bloom has perfected it over the period of 20 years. The platform is very robust. And one of the biggest advantages of very high temperature system like the solid oxide system is the energy efficiency is very high. Okay, so when you get gas, let's say you have natural gas or biogas, when you convert it to electricity, at the beginning of life, the efficiency is as high as 61%, which is same as combined cycle natural gas power plant, large scale power plants, okay? But you're getting the same efficiency at a distributed scale. Imagine outside the building, you have these Bloom energy servers, and efficiency of that energy server is same as a very large scale combined cycle plant, right? And then if you combine that with very high efficiency, you really get minimized amount of CO2 coming out per unit of electricity. And another reason why it is preferred by a lot of customers is because of the distributed nature, because it provides high level reliability and resiliency in the system. In fact, if you go to our website, we say we have an always-on microgrid, right? And because the way the system works is that if it's configured in a way that it can run completely independent of the grid, and it can completely follow the load. And that provides very high level of resiliency to the customers as well as reliability. In fact, there have been cases where some of the customers have lost power from the grid for 7 days, but because they had a Bloom server, they did not lose any power, which was any system which was being operated by the Bloom server. And those are some of the main reasons that on the fuel cell side, there's so much of excitement among the customers.
I love that, and I want to talk about that more a little bit later. And I could just pepper you with questions about Bloom's technology, especially that solid oxide electrolyzer. Before I do, though, would you mind giving the audience a comparison of the various electrolyzer technologies that are out there, like the solid oxide electrolyzers, the PEM, the proton exchange membranes, and the alkaline electrolyzers?
Yeah, so first of all, at the highest level, you can say there are two types of technologies. One is a low temperature technology, another is a high temperature technology. One is based on low temperatures is based on where you feed water, and high temperature is based on where you feed steam, okay, at that highest level. Now, in the low temperature, you have two mature technologies. One is the PEM, the proton exchange membrane, as you mentioned, and the alkaline. Alkaline is the oldest technology in the market. It's more than 100 years old, I believe. And the high temperature side, where it's steam fed, is the solid oxide system, okay? So, and that is where the Bloom's technology is based on solid oxide. Now, the advantage of the high temperature is, I put it two ways. One is the physics itself tells you that the energy efficiency, that means the amount of hydrogen, kilogram of hydrogen that you get per unit of electricity, is going to be much, much higher for the high temperature system, like our solid oxide system, roughly 25 to 30% better, okay, compared to the low temperature system. Right? That just comes from the physics itself. And the second thing is that if you go to low temperature system, typically PEM, for example, you have to use very expensive catalysts like platinum and iridium. That again goes back to chemistry. If you have higher temperature, you can get away with cheaper catalyst. That's what catalyst does. Catalyst can reduce the temperature at which a reaction takes place. So since they are at low temperature, they have to use a very expensive catalyst. Whereas in this high temperature system, they can use industrial catalyst, readily available catalyst like nickel. That makes the overall, I would say, system cost as well as reliability probably more robust, and you don't have to depend on very expensive materials. So
that's a really good overview on also the energy efficiency of the different types of technology, and as if someone were to be a consumer of those technologies, what the difference is and why those efficiencies matter. It sounds like it also boils down to just the cost of the unit itself, materials used within those.
Yeah, so two things, right? I mean, you have the energy cost and the cost of the capital, and how supply chain is another major issue when you're looking at developing technologies. But overall, the cost of energy is going to dominate. Okay, 70 to 80% of the cost of hydrogen will be basically because of the energy cost, electricity cost, right? So energy efficiency becomes very, very important. And there's no way out of it, because just the basic chemistry of breaking hydrogen molecule into hydrogen and oxygen, the theoretical minimum energy required itself is high. Okay, so there's no way out of it. It's going to be energy is going to be a dominant factor in the cost. So every ounce that you save, or in this case, every kilowatt hour that you save, and more ounces of a kilogram of hydrogen you produce, is going to be very, very critical.
So, and I reported on this fairly recently, that Bloom Energy's solid oxide electrolyzer is one of, if not the most efficient electrolyzers on the market. I was also reading up on the performance validation of Bloom's electrolyzer by the DOE's Idaho National Lab. Would you mind talking about how it works and the benefits of using your electrolyzer technology? I'm also interested to see if you could go into detail about the incredible efficiency that was recorded during the DOE's testing.
Right. That's great. I mean, so look, having worked in DOE myself and a national lab, I know one of the biggest benefits of doing a testing in national lab is that they publish the results. Okay, test many different technologies, right? So Idaho National Lab testing started last year, and in fact, next week I'm actually going to be in Washington D.C. They are reporting the findings in Department of Energy Merit Review meeting, AMR. So it's on June 7th when Idaho National Lab is going to publicly show the results in the DOE meeting. Okay, and the results are just amazing. First of all, this is the most efficient electrolyzer they have ever tested. Okay, is on record. This is when the director said that. The best performance was roughly 37.7 kilowatt hour per kilogram of hydrogen. It's just mind-boggling. So that's one part of it. They have tested in adverse condition many times. You can imagine what happens in Idaho Falls. The temperature fell way below zero. The electrolyzer still worked. They had to stop and start the electrolyzer many times, primarily because they had some troubles on the grid side of things, electricity supply. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of stop and start. Still, the electrolyzer worked beautifully. So already they have collected around 5,000 hours of data without any problem. Beautiful efficiency. And at the same time, they also conducted a test on ramp up and ramp down. So we can go from 100% power to 5% power in 10 minutes, right? And the beauty is, these are the results they're going to report, is that even at 5% rated capacity, they're finding out that the energy efficiency is still better or as good as other technologies at their rated capacity. Okay, that has surprised them even further, which is that tells you the robustness of the Bloom electrolyzer. So those are the results. They will be published next month, and then you may have heard or seen the press release that we did that NASA Moffett site, where actually the company started from the NASA Moffett site. That's where 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. So we have access to big space there. We basically right now are running the largest solid oxide electrolyzer system in the world. It's a 4 megawatt system. Wow. Which is producing hydrogen. We have a lot of visitors coming there because that shows the commercial readiness of our platform. And I want to tell you that the energy efficiency of the 4 megawatt system is very similar to one box that 100 kilowatt system that Idaho National Lab was testing. That tells you the repeatability of the performance. And we were able to do this 4 megawatt project from start to finish in 2 months. And the reason I want to point that out is that shows you that we can do things with speed. And one of the main reasons is 2 reasons. One is if you look at the Bloom electrolyzer, very modular. There's boxes it's like cut and paste. And all the learning that we have on the fuel cell. We have deployed roughly 1 gigawatt of fuel cell in the market. We monitor every fuel cell. And since it is the same platform, that learning has come very handy when we are developing or installing the electrolyzer system. And so anyway, we are very pleased with all this performance. I must say that.
It's great news. It's great technology. The way you're pushing the electrolyzer technology forward, it's amazing. And the results you're getting, kind of cliche to say they speak for themselves, but they really do. They're phenomenal. And here on the show, we've covered Bloom several times for a while now, and I feel like the company's had a number of game-changing announcements for hydrogen and the electrolyzer markets. The partnership with Xcel Energy at Prairie Island Nuclear Generating Plant to install your electrolyzer, the massive project in Canada with World Energy GH2, and the world's largest solid oxide electrolyzer installation at NASA's Ames Research Center, which you were talking about. Any one of these puts Bloom on the map, but everything you have going on right now is fascinating. Would you mind discussing any of these large-scale demonstrations, talk about how they're important to the hydrogen industry?
Yeah, we are very excited. Let me talk about World Energy, for example, okay? So, you probably saw this announcement that World Energy and ESCO Eco plant, they want to develop a first of a kind ammonia, world scale ammonia deployment in Canada, in Newfoundland. Okay. And the World Energy is a large and a leading developer of renewable fuels projects and a pioneer in SAF, which is sustainable aviation fuel. And this project is on green ammonia, what they are developing on the west coast of Newfoundland. And so they are looking at SOEC very seriously, and you saw the announcement, and we are very excited about it. They have not exactly this. There's going to be this World Energy project will have both PEM and electrolyzer, solid oxide. Exact combination they have not decided yet, like how many exact megawatts will go in PEM and how much will go in SOEC. But it is a great first step because they want the first hydrogen is planned in 2025, and then they expect the first ammonia from that plant in 2026. That project itself will be a big deal because it will be producing hydrogen and there's ammonia plant next to it. At the same time, it is located where there's a lot of wind energy available. Okay, high capacity wind power, so capacity factor. So you have wind, because as I said earlier, that energy cost is very important. So, and you also need firm power. You need high availability of renewable energy, and this particular site has a very good availability of wind power. We are super excited about it. I would say let's wait for the exact announcement. How many megawatts of SOEC? We are still under discussions, but but the project will go operational in 2025. We have with hydrogen production.
I can't wait to see the results on that. Going back to what you had mentioned earlier, also, I really love that AlwaysON Microgrid technology. I love it. Can you take a moment to talk a little bit more about that and the impact that can have on communities and businesses that need backup power generation during catastrophic events? Here in Houston, hurricanes, we also have had the freezes historically where electricity and grids have gone down. It's something that I feel like every city in America needs to have this tied into their local infrastructure in case of emergencies. It's like a modular power plant that can just save the day when it's needed.
Right. So as I mentioned earlier, right, our AlwaysON Microgrid. First of all, let me say how it is different. Okay, it is different because it's configured to also run completely independent of the grid. Okay, and it can very nicely follow the load. So whereas if you have a backup power like diesel or something else, you have many challenges. First of all, you can't be completely grid independent because you will require a lot of diesel just stored. Then you of course have smog and all kind of particulate, SOx, NOx, and all these other kind of problems, environmental challenges that you have, right? But in our case, it's connected to the natural gas line, which you have available next to most of the facilities. Natural gas lines are buried inside the ground, so it can very easily continue working, and that is one of the reasons customers really love it, right? And at the same time, other technology like batteries and all, again, batteries can last 4 or 5 hours, not more than that. Can't provide you continuous power. So in a serious grid outage, battery is not the answer. So those are some of the aspects of the technology of the microgrid which the customers love. And at the same time, it's silent. I mean, there's hardly any noise. If you're next to the Bloom system, you will not even know that this is generating electricity. But in the microgrid also, we can also combine very nicely we have microgrid solutions where there are batteries, there are solar panels, and then there's the Bloom system, right? Mm-hmm. So we can also do a hybrid microgrid where you have a lot of other technologies at the same time. So in that sense, again, the system is very, very flexible. And what happens in those cases is that, when the sun is shining, great, you get a lot of your power from the sun, maybe charge some of your battery. But Bloom, this modular power plant is always can give you the base load, right? All the time, right? So those are some of the aspects of the technology, and the flexibility in the technology is what the customers really love about the Bloom AlwaysON Microgrid.
And so much of the utilization talk now with hydrogen, it geared so much towards transportation that I think a lot of the applications for in particular these microgrids and the electrolyzers and fuel cells kind of get lost in the mix. But this is really one of those times when it should be highlighted what you can do with this microgrid technology. It's not just cities, but hospitals, colleges, schools. Any time you can replace these diesel generators with this fuel cell technology and application, I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. You don't have to worry about greasing, mechanical failures, anything like that. We do try on this podcast to talk about it as much as possible. It's just a great application for fuel cells outside of transportation.
And I would say, yes, absolutely. I totally agree with you. So, let me digress a little bit. So fuel cell, that is one of the differentiators. So our fuel cell is much better suited for stationary application. Okay, because that's the beauty of the solid oxide. Whereas if you look at PEM, which is probably better suited for transportation applications. Okay, because that's some of the traits of the technology. So if you look at our fuel cell application, we are everywhere. It's all stationary application, data centers, hospitals, Walmarts of the world. Those are the kind of customers we have. But in the future, as you say, everybody's shooting for much cheaper hydrogen, right? Today we are using natural gas in our fuel cell. We can also use biogas. We have quite a few projects going on. But in the future, when hydrogen becomes, really cost effective, then yes, I mean, your microgrid, fuel cell based microgrid could be running directly on hydrogen. And in fact, I would say even today, the technology that we have essentially is a hydrogen fuel cell. What we do is that we have natural gas coming in, we do reformation on the cell, the solid oxide cell, and basically the reformation creates hydrogen locally on the cell. And so at the end of the day, it is a hydrogen fuel cell, which is except right now we are feeding natural gas in it. And internally, we of course have really good results coming out on pure hydrogen gas fuel cell based fuel cell. But in the future, yes, I mean, I think there's a lot of interest in data center and some of these application data centers where they're waiting for hydrogen to become much more cost competitive, and then probably that can become the fuel to power the data centers.
So I've got one last question for you before we head out. That is, you obviously have a wealth of experience in the hydrogen industry. Would you give us your thoughts on the current state of the industry and where you think hydrogen is headed in the future?
I would say, as I said in the beginning, right, some of the very hard to decarbonize sectors, the chemical industry and the steel industry, are very, very seriously looking at hydrogen. And at the same time, you have the Inflation Reduction Act, which has provided significant impetus to the industry, right? So there are a lot of flurry of activities happening. Although we are talking mostly about hydrogen production, equally important is going to be, transport of hydrogen, storage of hydrogen, and offtake of hydrogen. Okay, yep. So those are the things which are still being debated and discussed. Like, do we need solar or a wind farm next to the electrolysis plant and next to the ammonia plant? Or can it be somewhere else? Those are all the things to watch for, and probably in 6 months there will be a lot of clarity. So it's almost like hydrogen is the electrolysis is the engine of a plane, jet engine, but you need to still build a lot of other parts together, important parts. So that is where I would say there's a lot of discussion and debate, and still the answers are not very, very clear, right? But in terms of applications, I think it's very clear. Some of the industrial sector will be first off-takers of hydrogen. Particularly, as I said, the World Energy Project, they're very interested. Ammonia is one of the biggest things people are talking about. And one of the main reasons is, apart from the fact that ammonia is I think the second largest chemical produced in the world, because it goes in fertilizers, ammonia is a great hydrogen carrier. Right. So it's not easy to otherwise transport hydrogen. So ammonia is a great hydrogen carrier. You can do, intercontinental transport of ammonia in ships. So basically, that's another main reason that ammonia is probably one of the very first applications that industry is going towards.
Ravi, this has been an absolutely fascinating conversation. I really enjoyed learning more about your solid oxide electrolyzer. I look forward to seeing more of that in the future. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity, Paul, and thanks for doing this hydrogen podcast. I call this the era of hydrogen. Finally, hydrogen has arrived.
I think so too, and we're happy to do it. All right, everyone. If you enjoyed listening to Ravi's views on the hydrogen industry and want to check out his company, Bloom Energy, we highly recommend visiting their website at www.bloomenergy.com to learn more. Thanks again. I hope you have a great day and take care.
Hey, this is Paul. I hope you liked this podcast. If you did and want to hear more, I'd appreciate it if you would either subscribe to this channel on YouTube or connect with your favorite platform through my website at www.thehydrogenpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. I very much appreciate it. Have a great day.